Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And in today's episode, we're recapping that wild come from behind win last night up at Citi Field by the Philadelphia Phillies. One of, if not the most impressive wins of the season so far. Like, just unbelievable fight out of this team. Also, we'll talk about game 2 in New York, an afternoon game today. So we'll give you a little bit of a preview, even though it's going to be kind of tight to game time by the time I get this episode out. We're also going to talk about an interesting call from the ninth inning in last night's game. Yeah, we'll get into all of it on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for checking us out. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase, this code, Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. We'll talk a little bit more about Prize Picks later, but that game last night was incredible for the Philadelphia Phillies. Just such good fight. They felt dead in the water for 99% of that game. The offense wasn't rolling. They couldn't hit Sean Manaea. They couldn't put stuff together. They really felt lost offensively in that game from Jump Street. Playing without Kyle Schwarber in the starting lineup. He did pinch hit in the game. Playing without JT Realmuto. We'll talk about that in the second segment, a little bit more on JT. But it wasn't your best possible lineup. Trey Turner's still on the injured list. And you go out there and you're like, okay, you're kind of sleepwalking. This is annoying. People were already freaking out. And I got tweets. Why did the Mets always have our number? Like I told you, these Mets series, or like Mets games, I should say, are going to be scrutinized more than your average series, and not just because they're divisional opponents, but because they're big-time rivals on top of being a divisional opponent. And there were people ready to be upset at the Phillies, and then the ninth inning happens. And the ninth inning rolls around. You're down 4-2. Edwin Diaz comes into the game. I don't know if he got the trumpets or not. I imagine he did. It's a home game. He normally gets the yeah, I'm not going to sing anymore. Don't worry. But you've seen the intros to the entrance music for Edwin Diaz, and all this pomp and circumstance up in New York, comes in and immediately gives up a home run to Bryson Stott, which right at that point, you're like, ooh, we've got something potentially cooking here. The Philadelphia Phillies might find a way to make this interesting. And then Diaz just kind of loses commands, and you give him another hit, but then you go for a walk, and then we have a Whit Merrifield issue that we're going to talk about with a check swing called on the field. I'm going to devote the whole final segment to that one because very controversial call, obviously. But ultimately, it comes down to Alec Boehm at the plate with the bases loaded, and Alec Boehm gets hit on the hand with 2 outs, and that forces in the tying run. And next thing you know, you got to go to the bottom of the ninth. Orion Kirkering did a great job of shutting it down in the bottom of the ninth. The real hero of that ninth inning was Bryson Stott, though, hitting that solo shot off Edwin Diaz. You don't see him give those up very often, at least lately, since he's turned into an outstanding closer. And Bryson Stott has been red hot, came through again, 2 hits yesterday. And he also had another big RBI later in this one. So you go into the top of the 10th, you create some opportunities. Bryce Harper, the ghost runner at second base. We talked about the ghost runner rule hurting the Phillies when they were on the road down in Miami. Well, guess what? Ghost runner rule, and you win a game on the road against the Mets. So it goes both ways. The better team's probably going to win more often than not, even with the new rules. That's why I'm like, it doesn't really bother me that much. But then in the 10th, Bryson Stott has a sacrifice fly to score Bryce Harper from third base to put the Phillies up 5-4. You're like, oh my goodness, they score. We have a chance. It's going to be hard with just 1 run. I felt the Phillies needed more than 1 run in the 10th inning at the time. And they proved me wrong because Jose Alvarado came in and absolutely shut down the New York Mets in the bottom of the 10th inning. And just like that, the Phillies steal a win. Like, I want to go ahead and check and see if I can pull this up. Because you know ESPN does the predictions, the percentage chance to win I want to go back and see during that ninth inning what the percentage chance for the Philadelphia Phillies to win as opposed to the Mets was last night in that game. So I'm going to start pulling that up. But it was just an absolute – this is why I love the Philadelphia Phillies, right? Because they fight to the absolute end. Okay, here. I got it now. In the top of the ninth, the lowest point, when Stubbs popped out to – actually, at the start of the top of the ninth, the Mets had an 80 or 94% chance to win. 94% chance to win that game. And the Philadelphia Phillies came back and got like that's just gotta crush Mets fans. I love it, dude. I hate the Mets and I hate that team, that fan base. Like, and here's what I will say. Ryan Finkelstein, who hosts Locked On Mets, he is absolutely awesome at what he does. He puts together a great podcast. So don't go hopping on Locked On Mets. I mean, if you want to watch and you want to comment, like, give him some love because he deserves it. He's awesome at what he does. So don't go after him. He's one of the few good Mets fans. But if you want to go on there and comment, blow another lead or whatever, like, that's fine by me. Go support Locked On Mets and all the Locked On podcasts. But I love seeing Mets fans sad. And there were some very sad and upset Mets fans at that game last night. A lot of Phillies fans in the crowd too, because the Mets had that quasi-tank implosion last year and they're under 500 this year. So there's not a lot of faith up in Queens that team's going to figure it out. No spring training celebrations or practicing World Series celebrations for the Mets this year, at least that I saw. But I can't say enough good things about the Phillies. I said multiple times watching that game, okay, this one's probably over. And I know that this team has a lot of fight. And I know they're going to make everything interesting. But even that, I was just like, well, you lost this one. It sucks. We'll talk about it tomorrow on the podcast. What a absolute testament to how good this team is. The Phillies are never out of a game. And I'm not just talking about making it interesting anymore. I'm saying you're going to have them down by like 6 or 7 in the ninth inning to feel comfortable against this baseball team. And you're probably not going to get them down 6 or 7 in the ninth inning very often, if at all. Like, there will be weird games where they don't throw well on the mound. That'll happen. We saw that with Zach Wheeler, and guess what happened when he did that Sunday in Miami? The offense put up 6 runs, and you went into extras against them. Even on your worst day starting, you're going to find a way to make games close. How many more good things can I say about this team? Well, I'm going to focus on just Bryson Stott, right? Because Bryson Stott is coming out of that early season slump that he was in. He is in a much better spot right now offensively than he was first 3 weeks of the season. He's now, to look at his numbers, batting .277 when he was down around the Mendoza line to start the season. 10 stolen bases, the most in the lineup right now with Trey Turner out. The next closest is Rojas with 9. He's got 25 RBIs. That is tied for third most in the lineup today. Like, he is a great overall baseball player. Great defensively. Has split time between shortstop and second base. It was great work by him. And also, credit to Rob Thompson. I think he did a really good job of managing that game, choosing when to pinch hit Kyle Schwarber, choosing defensively how to go through it, using the bullpen once again in, I think, really, really good spots. Credit to him. One other guy that I want to give some love to for last night's game that really deserves it and really needs it too, because we've talked about this guy a couple times on the podcast throughout the year, and his name is Seranthony Dominguez. Now, he went 2/3 of an inning. He allowed 1 run, walked 2, but in 25 pitches, he was in a spot that was a big, like, kind of set the tone for the rest of that game type of moment. And I thought he looked much better. I really did. Like, you don't love him giving up a run, but still, I love the fight from Seranthony Dominguez. He is not giving up on the season. And I don't think Phillies fans should totally give up on him. Gregory Soto, Jose Ruiz, Ryan Kerkering, Alvarado, all scoreless innings in relief, all of them with strikeouts to their name, besides Alvarado, who didn't need it. And you just went ahead and battled straight through the toughest game that I think they've won all year. What more do you want me to say? The Phillies are just better than everybody else right now. I don't know if it'll stay that way with some of the other top teams in baseball. My goodness, let's enjoy it while we got it. And let's laugh at the Mets fans while we have a chance. Coming up, we're going to talk about Game 2. we have a lineup. We have a pitching matchup. We're going to get into all of that, and we're going to talk about JT Realmuto's status because Phils fans might be time to start getting a little bit worried. Yeah, not great to hear, but we'll talk about it as we continue Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about Prize Picks first, our title sponsor. They're America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, and you can watch the winnings roll in. Baseball season's rolling. We've been talking about it every day here on Locked On Phillies, and you don't want to miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries. It might be strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. You can also get in on the playoff action going on in basketball, in hockey, and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason and hockey's postseason. So go ahead and check out Prize Picks. If you need another reason, you shouldn't, but if you do, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today, use code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more and pick less. It's that easy. All right, so let's run through today's lineup for Game 2. And we're also going to talk about, like I brought up a couple times, JT Realmuto. Again, you'll see, not in the lineup for today's game. Now, they're being cautious with him, and that's smart. I'm going to tell you something that Jason Stark said on the radio on our station yesterday that is very important to consider when you're looking at this JT Realmuto situation. But Kyle Schwarber pinch hit yesterday. I assumed he was going to be in the lineup today, so we don't have to worry about the Schwarber thing anymore. The JT thing's kind of concerning. Here's the lineup. Kyle Schwarber's leading off, DHing. Nick Castellanos, right field, batting second. I don't love Nick Castellanos in the 2-hole, but it is what it is. You're kind of hamstrung at this point by not having JT, not having Trey Turner. Bryce Harper batting third, playing first, as he's always going to be, basically. Alec Boehm, cleanup, playing third. Perfect spot for him. Bryce Stott batting fifth, playing shortstop today. So you get another look at Stott at shortstop with Turner out. Brandon Marsh in left field. Now, here's the interesting thing. Edmundo Sosa's getting a day, so Cody Clemens is going to play second. He's going to bat seventh. Rojas back in center field, batting eighth. And with JT out of the lineup, Garrett Stubbs batting ninth, catching. He did have an RBI on a bunt single yesterday. So, I guess credit to Stubbs on that. It was a great bunt. I'd like to see more out of the backup catcher position than what Garrett Stubbs has given the Phillies over the past 2 years. But I'm going to commend him when he does things well. But here's the issue. If you got to play 30 games, 50 games, 70 games, with Garrett Stubbs back there catching or somebody else not named JT Realmuto, if there's like a long absence for JT Realmuto, and I'm not expecting that. I don't think that's the case, but you're in trouble. That's a very important position, and you don't have a great backup. It's the only part of this team where I don't feel like they have great depth is at the catcher position. And I love what Stubbs brings to the locker room. I don't love what he brings to the baseball diamond, especially in comparison with JT Realmuto. So the hope is JT's fine. But remember when I was going to talk to you, let's do the Mets lineup first, and then we'll get deeper into the Realmuto thing. Brandon Nimmo leading off playing left, Starling Marte in right field, Francisco Lindor playing shortstop, Alonso first base batting cleanup, JD Martinez DHing, Brett Beatty third base, Taylor in center field, Joey Wendell at second base, Narvaez catching for the New York Mets. So no McNeil today, which all right, that's fine. And also they're facing Jose Butto, Aaron Nola on the mound. We already talked about that in our preview of the series. Pretty even pitching matchup. It might be low scoring today. I think both those guys have chances to be really good today, but Butto, right-handed pitcher, the Phillies see righties better. So I don't know. I like the Phillies' chances. ESPN Analytics predicts the Mets to win, 51.9% chance for the Mets. But the betting odds, if you listen to Vegas, minus 145 money line for the Phillies. So Phils are favored on the money line. The ESPN app is predicting the Mets, and we know the Phillies are the better team. So the hope is Aaron Nola goes out there and gives you one of those vintage divisional performances where he just shuts down. He's due for one of those like 7 innings, 2 hits, 8 strikeouts type of game. I don't know if we're seeing it, but he's due for one of those. I'm kind of itching for one of those right now from Aaron Nola. But Jason Stark, I heard an interesting soundbite from an interview. It was not the morning show, which I'm a part of, but it was our afternoon drive show. Go ahead and check it out, NBC Sports Philadelphia Radio. It's called The Best Show Ever. But he joined them. He talked a little bit about what this team is set up for. And he brought up the start that they're on record-wise. And teams that start this hot with this type of record that the Phillies have almost always win something, whether it's the division, whether it's the league and win the pennant, whether it's the World Series. Like, the only thing that derails teams like this, injury, right? When you start off this hot, this consistently over this stretch of time, you're a damn good baseball team. But if you have a bunch of guys get hurt, things change, right? And that's why caution with Kyle Schwarber like they did yesterday when he wasn't playing, caution with JT Realmuto like they're doing right now. That's the right way to handle it. Be careful, because the last thing you want is a 4 or 5 day injury to turn into a 40 or 50 day injury because of rushing these guys back, playing them through pain in May, and not being as careful as you can be. So I'm not overly worried about the JT thing right now, but missing 3 straight games is a bit concerning, especially for a guy like JT who loves to be out there. I have to imagine they've got him on a pretty tight leash when it comes to whether or not he can play right now, because he's a guy who always wants to play. I have to imagine this is the organization telling him, yo, dude, I know you want to be out there, but we're going to keep you off the field until we're sure you're good to go. And I get that. And maybe Stubbs will have a day today. Righty pitcher on the mound, lefty batter, Garrett Stubbs. Maybe he'll have another RBI hit today like he did yesterday. I know it was a bunt, but still an RBI hit. Maybe he'll start picking it up. I don't think Garrett Stubbs is like a terrible baseball player, right? I think Garrett Stubbs is like a Jake Cave equivalent player. I never said Jake Cave is terrible. I said he's not good enough to be a major depth piece on a World Series winning team. I don't know that Garrett Stubbs is. It's hard to say that because he was the backup catcher on the 22 team, and they were a couple wins away from the World Series, and they didn't lose that series because of Garrett Stubbs. So, like, they can do it. My point is he's going to need to show something in this time he gets from JT Realmuto. Other guys have stepped up. Christian Pache, when he's got his opportunities, has stepped up. Edmundo Sosa, when he's got his opportunities, has stepped up. Cody Clemens gets called up once Trey Turner goes down. He's stepped up at points. You've had a lot of guys step up depth-wise, and Garrett Stubbs is kind of the only one that hasn't had his moment yet this year. So maybe today's the day. Fingers crossed for the guy, because he's an easy guy to root for, and the Phillies could certainly use him to be an easier guy to root for by having a good performance today. But I feel good about where the Philadelphia Phillies are at. I would like them to win today. But again, remember, we talked about 4 total games. This is the last one at Citi Field, and then they'll play 2 at Citizens Bank Park on Wednesday and Thursday, weather permitting, rain in the forecast for tomorrow's game. I'd like to see them win the series. If they split, so be it. But I think they clearly stole one last night. They weren't supposed to win that game, and they went out and found a way to do it anyway. So now it makes you feel like, okay, maybe they build momentum off that. And we'll find out today if that was nice, they won, and now they don't find a way to get it done today, or if they build momentum and come back here to Philly and have 2 games in hand already in this 4-game straight against the New York Mets. Coming up as we wrap up, we're also going to talk about a very interesting call in the 9th inning in Whit Merrifield's at bat. And yeah, Mets fans were none too pleased. I'll explain what happened if you didn't see it, and I'll talk about my thoughts on it as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Next, Policygenius is what we're going to talk about. They're great. They're the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. You can talk to a team of award-winning agents. They're going to walk you through the process step by step. If you've shopped for insurance before, and basically everybody has, you know how annoying it can be to get a quote, compare it to another quote, to go through all these calls and talk to all these agents. With Policygenius, you can easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. Policygenius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. And thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers found Policygenius helped them find, the best fit for their needs. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb, or you can click the link in the description of this episode to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Finally, this Whit Merrifield at bat. It is one of the most blatant missed calls I've seen, especially in a big spot, I think, since I've been watching baseball. Like, it was, if you didn't see it, a chance to be out, strike out in the at-bat that he ended up getting on base on. I believe it was a walk that ended it. But he full-on swung. Like, it was not even close. He checked his swing, I guess, 3/4 or maybe more, 4/5 of the way through his swing, well through the plane you need to break for it to be ruled a swing. The home plate umpire says nothing. The home plate umpire was miserable late in this one too, but first base umpire says he doesn't go. It's crazy. The Mets dugout went nuts. It was very clearly a swing. He should have been called out on strikes. It would have changed the course of the game. You got a huge call to go your way for the Phillies. And if you're the Mets, you got a huge call to go against you. And honestly, I have to say, right, when things go against the Phillies, I'm very upset. So I'm going to be totally fair as I can be to Mets fans. I know it's no consolation to see a bad call go your way like that. And bad calls shouldn't happen in baseball to that magnitude in that big of a spot. So to Mets fans, I just want to heartfelt say, who cares? You lose anyway. Nothing you can do. We're going to take those every day. If you want to make bad calls in favor of the Philadelphia Phillies, give them to us all day long. MLB, put the worst umpires on the game. I don't care if Angel Hernandez is calling strikes 14 feet off the plate for Phillies pitchers. I'll take it. You know what? I'm a Phillies fan first. And for it to happen against the Mets and all you whining and everything, all right, deal with it. Whatever. I don't care. You'd be doing the same thing if it was us. You'd be telling us to stop being crybabies. Yeah, get over it, Mets fans. It happens. Sucks that it happened to you. Glad it didn't happen to us. We'll take the win anyway. Just wanted to get that out there. Oh, man. It's fun when one of those calls goes your way. In all seriousness, like, baseball should have better umpires, and I talk about that regularly when bad calls are made. I'll say that again. Quality of MLB umpires, not good enough. But when it goes the Phillies' way, I'm going to celebrate it. I'm going to enjoy it. Still going to enjoy the win. And hopefully we're enjoying another one today. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for checking us out. Appreciate it. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff. And I'll talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.